The company that was given an order to supply electrical equipment for the Pallekele and R. Premadasa stadiums has filed a case against Sri Lankan cricket authorities at the Colombo District Court for defaulting. The complainant pointed out that SLC has not shown any interest in paying for the equipment amounting to 2,546,163 rupees and filed the case seeking payment. The chairman of the SLC, the secretary and its executive board have been named as the respondents in the case. We are with Newsfirst. Up next is a look at Action TV.
This group had arrived at the Ampara General Hospital last evening to direct a letter to the President through the medical superintendent of the Ampara General Hospital, requesting that a proper investigation be carried out into the death of a 4-year-old child. However, a tense situation arose at the location when no one was initially allowed to enter the hospital premises. It is evident through the peaceful manner in which the group behaved earlier that if the medical superintendent had accepted the letter, a tense situation would not have arisen. On Tuesday, the medical superintendent, speaking at a media briefing, presented facts on the death of the child in question. We are unable to determine what happened. We contacted the specialist doctors to ask about what had happened. Even they were unsure. The cause for death of this child, which was questioned for doctors, was finally revealed at the post-mortem examination that took place on Monday. The child died on Sunday evening, 5 hours after surgery was performed on the child. The child was admitted to the Ampara General Hospital the previous night with an abdominal pain. Though the post-mortem examination revealed that the cause of death was a small bowel scamus due to the mid-gut vasculopedical twisting, the medical superintendent revealed the reasons as to why the child was subjected to a medical operation. The operation was carried out assuming that it was a problem concerning the appendix. The mid-gut vasculopedical twisting was a symptom that existed 2 days prior to the operation. But that was only revealed through the post-mortem examination. It was not clinically determined at first. The symptoms were not evident. We got to know about this through the post-mortem examination. However, the reasons that were revealed through the post-mortem examination could have been determined prior to subjecting a child to surgery. If a scan was conducted, the exact illness could have been determined. If not, we administer treatment based on the symptoms. We administer treatment that will help the patient overcome the illness. The decision to subject this child to a surgery in a bid to save the child's life was made without even conducting any form of tests. When a patient is brought to the hospital, a clinical test is done first. They don't do any other test. There are instances where in case of an emergency, the patient will be subjected to an immediate surgery. Appendix-related issues will not be left idle for a long time. Such patients will be directed for surgery. The same procedure was followed here as well. But it was revealed later that the cause of death was not the appendix-related issue, but something else. Wasn't the time period between the admission of the child to the hospital and the time of surgery sufficient to determine the cause that was revealed through a post-mortem examination? Although doctors have a professional responsibility to cure the child as soon as possible, would it not help for the development of the profession to inquire whether professional negligence had led to the child's death?
In one of our headline-making stories this evening, Saudi Arabia has passed a new law on foreign domestic workers with a grace period of 4 months to November 3rd before the legislation comes into effect.
The new law passed by Saudi Arabia protects the rights of domestic workers as well as contain provisions that favor employers. Labour Minister of Saudi Arabia Adel Faki says the new piece of legislation attempts to reconcile the rights of domestic workers and their employers. Sri Lanka received 60% of its foreign exchange from Middle East. This is inclusive of the contribution made by over 300,000 Sri Lankan workers employed in Saudi Arabia. The BBC reports that under the provisions of the new legislation, workers are now entitled to a salary at the end of every month and one off day a week. Workers including maids and drivers are also legally entitled to 9 hours of free time daily, sick leave and a 1 month paid vacation every 2 years. Additionally, employers are prohibited from asking workers to undertake tasks that are outside the contract or could harm their health. However, under the new law, workers will not have the right to reject work or leave the job without any genuine reason. Employees are also expected to obey the employer and his family members and not harm children or the elderly. Under the new law, workers are obliged to respect the teachings of Islam, the rules and regulations of Saudi Arabia and carry out their duties perfectly. Incidentally, Indian-based The Hindu website charges that the new law has a number of elements that are unlikely to meet the benchmark of international labour laws and human rights. What is the backdrop for introduction of this new piece of legislation? In the recent past, the controversial treatment of domestic workers in Saudi Arabia, many having to face the death penalty, made international headlines. An Indonesian woman was sentenced to death in March following her conviction for murdering a 4-year-old girl, while last October, a young Sri Lankan, Rizana Nafik, was beheaded for allegedly killing an infant in her care. Human rights groups slammed the punishment of Nafik, charging that she was a minor at the time of the infant's death. The growing unemployment and the unequal distribution of income that were major issues in a backdrop of dictatorial rule gave rise to massive protests in 2010 in several Arab nations, which is known as the Arab Spring. In the wake of the Arab Spring, Saudi Arabia redefined its labour laws with a view of providing more jobs to its youth. Accordingly, a new system called the Nitakat was introduced by the Saudi Ministry of Labour in June 2011. The recent Nitakat law reserved 10% of jobs to Saudi nationals in any private enterprise. Employees who break the new law will be fined $533 and face a 1-year ban on recruiting domestic help. 3 instances of breaking the law will earn an employer a lifetime ban and a fine of $2,600. On the other hand, workers violating a contract would be fined $533, banned from working in Saudi Arabia, and would have to bear the cost of repatriation to their home countries. The Hindu reports that with the passage of the Nitakat law, around 90,000 Indian expatriate workers have contacted the embassy to get their documents regularized, while another 65,000 persons seeking exit from the country have collected their travel documents from the missions. Saudi authorities note that foreign workers can either regularize their documents or leave the country without incurring a penalty during a grace period that has been extended by 4 months to the 3rd of November.
Are Sri Lankan workers in Saudi Arabia aware about this new law?
Countries have decided to give priority to people of their own nationality before providing employment opportunities to foreigners. Countries like ours miss out on these jobs because they have decided to give priority to people of their own nationality. Hence, it may be difficult for us to obtain certain jobs. There was another benefit in addition to the grace period. Employers who were unregistered have been registered. Therefore, 2,000 of the 14,000 decided not to return to Sri Lanka because they can register with their employers. Around 12,000 wanted to return to Sri Lanka. 3,000 have already arrived. Necessary measures will be taken for the remaining 9,000 to return to Sri Lanka by the 3rd of November.
This is the harvesting season for the farmers in many parts of the island. However, one of the main issues faced by farmers is the inability to protect their harvest from wild elephants. Newsfirst travelled to the Huluanga area in Ampara to find out more about the plight of these farmers.
When Newsfirst arrived at the Huluanga area, we witnessed how farmers were harvesting their crops. Traders who had arrived at the paddy fields were seen purchasing paddy from the farmers. However, farmers point out that their village, which borders the Lahugala Reserve, faces a constant threat of wild elephant attacks. The farmers note that the lack of an electric fence is the main cause of this issue. Newsfirst was also able to capture visuals of wild elephants straying into the paddy fields from the Lahugala Reserve. After toiling throughout the day, farmers returned to their fields once again during the night in order to protect their crops from the wild elephant menace.
This hut belongs to Ranasinghe. Ranasinghe, who is a farmer, is here with his wife. They stay in these huts to minimize the threat to their farmlands. I stay awake until 11 or 12 and let her sleep. When she wakes up, I go to sleep. Do you think it is dangerous to keep a woman inside a hut at night? We are afraid, but we need to protect our farmlands. Haven't you asked for solutions to these issues? We have asked for solutions. We requested for an electric fence. We wrote letters, we spoke at meetings. Even recently they came and did a survey. However, we are yet to receive a response.
These farmers continue to risk their lives to safeguard their crops from wild elephants because they are left with no other alternative.
Minister of Justice Rauf Hakim says that mediation is the ideal way to resolve disputes. The minister made this statement in line with National Mediation Day, which falls today.
Although we have taken various steps from time to time to reduce the delay in meting out justice, we have fallen short. Certain cases continue to drag in court, citing various issues in the Criminal Procedure Code, Evidence Ordinance and Civil Procedures Code. These issues do not exist in the Mediation Board. Many people who suffer from mental stress are individuals who have cases in court. Our judges know this. Whenever someone appears before the court, they shiver. They are scared of court, and sometimes even the judges look very unpleasant. I am sorry to say this, there isn't a friendly atmosphere. There are people who faint after being advised for the slightest things. I believe this atmosphere should change.
Sri Lanka Cricket has taken a decision to impose a 50% fine on a Sri Lankan A-team cricketer's tour fee as a severe warning for his behaviour. The decision comes following a disciplinary inquiry conducted on a Sri Lanka A-team cricketer who acted in an indisciplined manner aboard an aircraft returning from a cricket tour in the West Indies. The decision was taken at Sri Lanka Cricket's Executive Committee meeting held last evening.
The second test of the Ashes series commenced at Lord's in England today. Today marks a special day at the Ashes as Queen Elizabeth II was present to witness the game of cricket between Australia and hosts England. England won the toss and opted to bat first against Australia, who lost the first test by antagonizing 14 runs to go 1-0 down in the 5-match series last week. Australia dropped Mitchell Starc and Ed Cowan from the second Ashes and replaced them with fast bowler Ryan Harris and middle order batsman Usman Khawaja. England got off a poor start with skipper Alistair Cook being dismissed for 12 runs and Joe Root sent back for 6 runs by Shane Watson and Ryan Harris respectively. Harris struck again 4 balls later to dismiss Kevin Peterson for just 2 runs to the disappointment of the home fans. England were 234 for the loss of 4 wickets a short while ago.
Oh, that's gone a long way up. Will it carry that far? Yes, it does.
That's it for the moment. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place. I'm Shamir Rasooli.
And I'm Shanali De Silva. Have a good night.
Hotline 0114 896 896. www